party people. I did not pull up the podcast, so it's going to be hard to podcast without that online. We'll get there. Hey, look at us go. What do we name this? The ins and outs and something or other? Great. Hey, welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. I'm your host, Hanna Nuss. I realize I haven't been saying that. It might be important that you know who I am. I am Hanna Nuss. Now you know. So we've gone through different phases of this podcast, interestingly enough. And if you listen to all the episodes, bless your soul, I think interestingly enough, I started this podcast wanting my name to be completely assigned to it, but having to keep it kind of dialed back because, a job and stuff, which that's not what I talked about, but there was this underlying fear that at some point this work would come back to bite me in the butt. And it did. So I wasn't wrong. So there was a point, probably at about 9 months, where I started to be targeted for this work and started to feel really threatened in doing this work. And so I removed my name. I created an Instagram account only assigned to the podcast, and I started to create assets that removed my name from it entirely. And so I had gotten used to not saying my name in a sort of Mark Twain-y type way of like, is that who had the pen name? I can't remember. Okay, let's just create this pen name so we can stay safe and kind of live here safely and keep doing this work and, try to not get fired from the job that you have. And it didn't work. And so stupidly or intelligently, I don't know, you decide. You can decide. I had started and trusted that I was in a safe space and that I could create as I saw fit. Now, what I didn't know is that people were just watching me and keeping tabs of every time that I stepped over the line. And instead of coming to me and saying, hey, you're over the line, maybe delete that episode, maybe watch what you're saying, they kind of kept those tallies and came to me when I had made enough of a mark or when I had said enough things for them to think that there was enough against me. And so then I started to clean it up. Then I just decided, you know what? This is what I want to do. And I started this podcast experimenting with whether or not this was what I wanted to do. And I didn't know. I didn't know at that point. And I had been fully transparent in this pursuit. And I had just blindly trusted people to have my interest in their minds, and it turned out to be the opposite. And that's okay, right? That's a part of the beautiful story of life. We mess up. We do crazy stuff. We dive in. We take chances. We keep going. And I don't know what's coming next. And that's sort of the beauty of all of it, right? I didn't know when I started this what was going to happen. I didn't know that someone that I trusted as a confidant, as someone who supported me, would then come back and try to shut me down. I didn't know that openly speaking about my passions would hurt me in some way. But hurt or help, here we are now. And so I think the long story of the removal of my name, and I had this realization yesterday that I don't know that you know who I am. So here is who I am. And that's really the backstory to why my name kind of got removed and why I got used to not saying it, because I had gotten to a place where I had to not say it, period. So now we're back. I'm Hanna Nuss. I started this journey 3 years ago when I woke up at the age of 30 and realized that I had no goals to work on. I had nothing really left to do in life. And instead of just packing it in and preparing for retirement, I told my husband that traveling the world in an RV, once we have saved enough to live our lives, really doesn't interest me. I want to live my life now. I want to do exciting, fun things now. I'm still living this life. I'm not really willing to write the rest of it off and start saving for that and just muddle through what all of this is. I'm not willing to do that. And so he was like, okay, well, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I'm with you. Whatever you say, let's go do that. And so I'm like, you know what? I got to come up with new dreams. And the crazier thing, okay, now I just remembered what we were going to talk about. Let me just get my great thing in first, because we always ground ourselves in greatness, and I kind of skipped that. Okay, my great thing is that my 4-year-old took a nap. Now, I'm realizing that she hasn't really napped for me since she was 6 months old. And I also realized that summer is over and she started school, and it is mainly because she started school. But I am going to say, I got her to take a nap, and I don't care. Haters gonna hate. Go ahead and throw your shade out there. Go ahead and tell me that it wasn't me, that it was everything else, but that child still took a nap, and I will hang my hat on that. Okay? If you know her, if you don't know her, this is what you should know. This child does not nap. Although she always napped for her daycare provider, she'd never nap for me since, seriously. Okay, maybe it wasn't 6 months old, but it was weirdly young for her to not be napping. And I realize how terrible that is. And I realize, but I can't fight it. It just never happened for me. And yesterday it did. And I am forever grateful. And that is my greatest thing of the entire year. And I can't help but be excited. Okay, let's go ahead and take time today for yourself. Recognize yourself for a great thing. Even if it's something that you can't really attribute to yourself, I don't care. I felt great about that. You should feel great about anything that you feel great about, period. That's it. Start recognizing yourself for it. Do it every day. You will be better because of it. And it is such a small action that you can take. Okay. So, darn it. Lost the train of thought. No, where were we? We'll get it back. Okay. So I woke up and I realized that I didn't want to do those things. And I think, okay, I got it back. Here it is. I think the hardest thing for me was that I hadn't ever not been goal-oriented. I had grown up in environments that were super goal-oriented. I had grown up in environments where you wrote goals down because I was an athlete. And so for me, it kind of just felt like, okay, you already know this structure, just copy and paste it. Just write down goals and dreams. And so that's kind of what my husband and I had been doing for the 10 years prior, right? We sat down, we had goals, we had aspirations, we had these things that we were going to do. We were so great, right? And we bought the books and we did the things and people believed that we were more. And in fact, we were, right? We got together, we did things, we wrote things in books, we read books. Wow, go us. All these things, right? And, you know, I truly believed that I was doing the right things. And I was. Right in that moment, that wasn't really that wrong. I did have goals. I did have dreams. And that was great. And the second that I had reached those, right? And if you haven't reached any goals or or you feel like yours are just way far out, right? If you have a dream to own an RV after you retire, that's not going to be something that you'll see instant proof of, except for you're going to have to start saving, right? And you'll see the proof of whether or not you can do that by your savings. I won't explain how savings work and retirement accounts, whatever. But I sat and I wrote and I had goals and I had dreams and I had aspirations. And when I turned 30, I realized that I had reached them. And it started to scare me. And I started to think like, oh, this is where you just kind of ride out. This is it. And then part of that, the last 3 years, part of that journey was me just going, okay, now I just need to serve. Now I just need someone to notice me. I need someone to tell me what my next step is, because that really was how I lived a majority of my goal setting life. People would tell me what I should do. Okay, so a coach would come in and analyze my talent and they'd say, okay, well, we have this hole, and so start training there. Or you seem to be good at this thing, so let's start to do that. And then that's what I would do. And I would work as fast as I could, as hard as I could to move up in that cycle and to get there. But it was always dependent on someone telling me. And what I started to realize is people aren't going to tell you, so you're going to have to come up with this on your own. And I had kind of done that, except for the things that I had come up with, the dreams that I had come up with. As I started to go back and I started to analyze that, they were really based on things people had told me. And so when I turned 30, when I realized that I had nothing left, I started to feel super scared. And when people weren't telling me what to do next, when nobody would give me an answer, when I would have leaders say to me like, well, what do you want? I started to question what I wanted. And I had always been so sure, and I had always known, and I had always had these dreams, and I didn't know anymore. And so I remember on my 30th birthday sitting down and starting to write dreams and starting to write goals. And I couldn't write anything. I didn't know. And so a good portion of my 30s were me kind of going back and asking for more and asking for next steps and wanting more from my different positions that I held, from my coaching position, from my marketing position, asking for more, asking for next steps, asking for growth lines, timelines, things that I could work my way up in, next level stuff. And every time that I turned for those things, people would turn back and ask what I wanted, and people would either move me up and give me what I wanted, and then I would just be lost all over again, or they'd just say no, and I would have to go back to the drawing board. And this sort of became a rat race that year. And what I started to realize is I'm never going to get anything if I keep asking everybody what I should want. So then I start taking things out just to see. So I had become blatantly aware that I should stop coaching. And there were sign all over again. Crazy stuff was happening. And I began to pull back from that. And I began to experiment with this idea that maybe volleyball isn't all that I'm worth. Maybe that isn't the only way for me to foster this want to lead, for me to foster this want to move people forward in their lives, for me to experiment. And I also realized that it's taking a lot of my time, and more than anything, it was taking a majority of my presence. And I didn't really have time to think or breathe. And it's really hard to take time to focus on yourself when all of your time is going for everyone else. So something had to come off of my plate in order for me to get down to this work. And so I remove myself from that and I start really looking at what I want once I give myself time to do that. And it started with just sitting in the mornings and thinking about what I want and listening to different resources. Gosh, there are so many, but one of the main ones that got me thinking this way, that got me believing that I could do something was Don't Keep Your... Now, so hilariously named, Don't Keep Your Day Job by Kathy Heller. And that moment where I actually start believing that I could just create what I want to do in this world was a huge shift for me. And once I had that belief sort of shifted, once I truly started to think that this was up to me, I could start to dream authentically for myself. I could really start to dive into what this was going to look like. And I don't know if I hadn't been given that ability, or if I hadn't been given the gift of believing that, I don't know that I ever would have written down dreams that were authentic for me, that were real for me. And that's it right there. I hadn't ever asked myself, period. I hadn't. I had always leaned on other people to tell me where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And because of that, right? Because of that, I became a subject to my surroundings. I could only be as big and as high and dream as big and as bold as the people around me. And if you aren't, that's a dangerous thing. If you aren't surrounded by people who dream like that, who think like that, who call in bigger spaces. And the reality was, I just wasn't. And so I had kind of just gotten used to staying about right here. And I don't know that I ever would have asked. I don't know that I would have ever asked myself what I wanted. Because I didn't even realize that was an option, right? It wasn't really written like that for me. It wasn't presented like that for me. And I think a lot of that comes from a middle-class upbringing. And I just didn't really ever believe that I had a say. And that's why I'm here. I truly believe that that's why I'm here. I truly believe that this is a part of the message that needs to be shared. You know, breaking down what this podcast is and how it presents itself and what you've become a part of. Welcome. You're here. If I had to break it down, and I had this conversation with a close friend yesterday, and she asked that, like, well, what are you doing? What is this? What is this? And this is what it is. Okay? If I had to break it down for you. Season 1 really was me sitting down and carving out and coming back every day and talking through how you recover from the death of your dream. Period. That's it. And it's every day. And it's painful. And it goes in a million different directions. And you have no idea where we're going to land. But it's real. It is my real life. Every day. How I'm feeling. Where I'm going. How I kept myself going. Because I didn't have people surrounding me and telling me, yeah, you should be questioning this. Yeah, you should be showing up. Yeah, you should be writing goals for yourself. I had no one saying that. Everyone around me was going, Don't question it. It's working. You're doing just fine. You're actually doing better than fine. What? Why? Why would you do that? Why? Right? And the reason that I wanted to keep going is because of that. Because if you're on this journey, if you're questioning things, if you have goals, if you have dreams, if you want more, and people around you don't understand, I didn't ever want anyone to go on that journey alone. And so I just kept coming back. And I know how hard it is to keep going every single day, to wake up and to keep wanting more when everyone is telling you to just be okay. Right? And so I kept going. And so every day would show back up, and that really is season 1. And interestingly enough, as life would have it, season 2 kind of took us into me leaving where I was in order to pursue my new dreams. The death of a dream started out as me trying to discover what my dreams even were. And season 2 really is how to start walking that path, how to start waking yourself up, where you want to go, how you want to get there, and what it looks like every day to actually be stepping through that. I mean, you heard the lows of stepping into your dreams, right? That's hard stuff. Man, I kind of thought it'd be easy. And I'm sure that that's what everyone was thinking. Like, oh, how cool. You don't have to have a real job. This is what I want to tell you. Okay? If anyone ever says that to you as you pursue your dreams, because that's what it's going to look like, right? Oh, Hanna just writes and podcasts. How cool. Cool, Hanna. Go, girl. That's so cool. I wish that I could do that. They can. And don't let people distract you from the amount of work that went into getting to this place. Because now I produce obscene amounts. Obscene is not a word, but I said it. Insane amounts of... Okay, now I produce insane amounts of content, but what you should know is that, first and foremost, it took a shit ton. Yup, swore. A shit ton of self-work to get here. And anyone who is a creator, anyone who paints or writes or draws or podcasts or sings or anything, you can look at that and you can say, oh, how cute. Oh, I wish I was talented like that. Oh, I wish that I could just write. Oh, I wish that I could just paint. It is not just that. The amount of self-work and self-discovery and confidence and all the things that it takes to even put yourself out there is more work than you could ever imagine. And so don't let people undermine the intensity of what it took to get to this place, because now I just press record and the afterwork takes me less time than it did before, but it took me 3 years of work to be in this place. So it's not just a half-hour podcast, right? And for you, if you're a creator, if you post on social media, it's not just that, right? There's so much more depth that went into that. So don't let anyone undermine what you're doing and just say, oh, how fun, because it's not all fun, right? So you heard that. That's step by step. You can hear that pain. You can hear that sadness as we go through this. This is everyday, real life, how you chase your dreams, right? And hopefully someday when we look back on all of this becomes a guide for someone, right? No matter what you're doing, no matter what you're trying to chase, maybe this helps you. Maybe this is the community that you need to come up to start chasing your dreams, to question if your life is just fine and if you're okay with that. Maybe that's what this becomes for you, right? And I hope that it does. And I hope that someday, this podcast, this body of work right? The blog, the podcast, the YouTube videos, the TikToks, the Instagram posts. I hope someday this body of work helps someone not feel alone like I did. Right? And I don't know why you're here and what this is doing for you, but my hope is that you never feel alone. That's why we're here every day, right? So that you don't have to walk alone, so that you can be surrounded by people who think like you. Even if you're sitting in a small town in Iowa somewhere and you're questioning if you should be doing this, if you even have a right, if you even, the audacity, right? You do. You can. And you should. And this podcast and this community and this group of people are people who want more. That's it. That's who we are. That's who we've always been, right? And maybe we lose her at times. Because it's hard not to get lost here in this world. But this is who we are. And this is who we want to be. And no, we won't settle until we get there. Until we get those things. So today, I'm really working to kind of construct and figure out who we are and where we go from here. And this is what I'm planning to tell you now. Okay. So every day you're going to get this podcast, and it's every weekday. It's not Saturday and Sunday. I am working on consistently launching Empowered Women Wednesdays, which is really just super awesome interviews with super awesome women, and I'm trying to ramp up the consistency of that. What I can promise you is at least once a month, maybe more. Hopefully, at least once a month, hopefully more. And if you want to be interviewed, there is an application on my webpage to be interviewed. And I would love to just talk about anything that you're doing that's empowering women. That's it. That's the qualification. I don't care how many followers you have. I don't care anything. You want to be on here? You want to come talk about the work that you're doing? I would love to help you I would love to be that platform for you to start talking about it. Let's go, right? So we have the podcast. That's a little bit about that. I have a daily blog, and that one probably is pretty daily. That's where you can find me. And the blog is sort of a more personal insight into what we talk about on the podcast. So usually that's a little more personal stories, a little more specific instances of what's going on with the podcast. Then we have the YouTube channel, which is a live recording of this podcast. And also I do a vlog, which is really where I'm at today, what I'm experiencing, an in-depth look at who I am. And we are going to start giving, I am going to start giving away tactical ways to apply what we've talked about on the podcast. So this week we kind of hit minimalism, and I'm planning at the end of this week to give a tactical guide to how I do minimalism, right? This is what my closet looks like. Here are the things that you need. So if that's something that you've been vibing with, if you want the tactical go-to ways to apply the things that we talk about, you want to sign up for my email list, you can do that at nussinc.com. That's going to be a weekly email where you get the tactics of what we're talking about. So, anything from how to do minimalism to how to set specific goals, how to keep going for what you want out of life. Really, it's going to give you that structure to turn to. And so if you want to be a part of that, if that's something that you want in your inbox, because more than anything, I don't want you to have to go this alone. And I'm always going to want to provide you with ways to do it and a community to do it with. And so that's what we're doing. If you want to sign up for that, you can go to nussinc.com. That's what we're doing. That's kind of this body of work as it sits right now. I am working on writing the book for season 1. And that's been insane and so much fun. So that's all I have for you today. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.